What's going on, Twitch and YouTube? Welcome to episode 23 of the U.S.S. CERRITOS tutorial. I'm Zerly, and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. And if you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, helping me in supporting the channel. Can't thank you enough for that. Today we've got kind of a long one. We've got about a 37-minute video. We're going to be getting some detail done on the outside area for our bridge, and then also continuing our work on these corners here. I believe by the end of today's episode, we should have these corners done. And we're also going to close in this section right here in the cut on within the V. But we still have a ton of stuff to do on this build nonetheless, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Now, on the model of the CERRITOS, there's like a piece that kind of like angles backwards. It's like a long strip. And what I'm getting at is that the CERRITOS has the bridge area is unique on the outside to it. I've never seen another ship that looks quite like this on the outside. Not necessarily hard to do here. And I'm just going to wireframe it out until I come up with the exact shape that I want. But again, I don't have that picture up, but if you want to pull up screenshots, just go on Google and search U.S.S. CERRITOS 3D model or U.S.S. CERRITOS, and look for pictures of the top of the ship where the bridge is located. And you'll see this exact piece that I'm making right here. And it just kind of, it starts out fat and it gets slimmer and slimmer as we go back. And I think I'm going to do one more bar going, or one more cut going in. And then after that, we'll do a row in between going across to connect them. I'll do one more. Let's go for it. This looks pretty good. Very similar to what the CERRITOS looks like. Needs a little something. We're going to have to go along the sides here, I think, with half slabs, and of course fill in the center of it. But in this area right here, at least, there's not that much detail. We're going to have to do some detail on the sides as well. We won't get that done in today's episode because after we do this, we're going to be focusing primarily on those corners, the back end of the saucer, like right above the shuttle bays. Because I'm not kidding, that area was a pain in the butt to do, but design that I settle on, I don't think it's going to look too bad. But anyway, getting back in a little bit what we got going on here, you can see I'm just filling in the rest of the gap here in the center after we wireframed it. And now I'm going to come back with half slabs. I think I'm going to skip the very first one, or maybe I can do blocks just going on the corner right here. Do too high, do that on each side. That feels a little bit better. It makes more sense as a pattern anyway to have that going at an angle like that. All right, perfect. So now we've got that out of the way. I'm doing the half slabs along the outline. Also need to do back end too. Because this is just going along with our design of the ship. Definitely incorporated the half slabs into it, but I don't think that looks bad. It would have looked better if we had gray ones, but we'll make do. But she's definitely starting to look a little bit more like the CERRITOS. I like where this is going. And you can see by just adding that little bit extra detail there, it starts to bring out a little bit more of the characteristics in the ship. And that's one of the reasons why I always say, you know, pull up as many screenshots as you can of the ship that you're building, because that's where your detail is going to come in. And just look at it from different angles, pull up a bunch of different pictures from it. If you have a 3D model of it, that's best. Just go on Google and type in U.S.S Cerritos 3D model, and you should be able to find one pretty easily. Um, but that's what I honestly do when I'm building these ships. I'll usually be looking at a 3D model, and I'll just look at it from different angles to try to catch different details on the ship that I can incorporate into my build to make it look that much more detailed. So now we're working on these corners again, which is just going to be a pain in the butt, but at the same time, no pun intended with that. We'll be done with it by the end of today's episode, with this area at least. There's still going to be a ton of stuff left to do on this build. We haven't even touched the interior yet. We still have a lot of detailing to do on the outside of the ship too. Um, the one thing I talked about that I really want to do is that the Cerritos, especially on the saucer section, has a very unique pattern to its hull. Different shades of blue on the hull, and I want to see if I can try to replicate that in Minecraft. I don't know if it's going to be possible, um, but I want to at least try. I want to bring out a little bit more of the characteristics that we've seen and that we know from the ship. And that's going to be one of the things that's going to help to bring this ship to life a little bit more. Like I did that also with the Discovery Enterprise. I decided towards the end of the build that the hull wasn't right on the outside. It just didn't feel like that era ship. And instead of doing the traditional hull lines like I've done on the Constitution class, I decided to change it up as far as having a main pattern of different sized rings on the upper side of the hull. And I think it came out great. It looked awesome. It looked just like the Discovery Enterprise. And by making the decision to do that here, obviously we won't be doing the same thing. We'll be doing what I talked about earlier, but it's going to be just an extra layer into helping making this ship come to life. So even if there was like maybe one or two areas that I didn't get 100% like perfect, overall it's the ships should look pretty good. I mean, I don't really think that there's any areas on the ship that necessarily look bad aside from these cuts right here, but by the end of today's episode, we'll be caught up with as far as being done with them. And thank God, because this is hands down my least favorite part of this build so far. I know at this point that I'm really close, but you can see I'm just zooming around taking a look at it. And that's because it's just not sitting right with me, this top part right here. And really what I need to do is have a pattern, like I need to come up with a basic pattern. And I'm kind of getting that together, but I don't have that just yet. And it's going to be a combination of rotating between doing rows of the half slabs and then the full slabs within a consistency that kind of resembles this back stairway area, like I mentioned last night. That's the best way I can describe it. But it took a little bit to get to that point, because I mean we still have 29 minutes in this episode, and we're pretty much going to be spending a lot of that on this area, and then we'll close in this part right here. You see what I'm doing right now is I'm zooming out and I'm looking at the ship from different angles. This is a great thing to do too. Not only is it good to look at your source material at different angles, it's great to look at what you're building from different angles, and then again looking back at your source material and comparing them. So that's exactly what I was doing right there. I was just zooming out, looking at the ship from the same angle as my picture and seeing how well they match up. That's one of the things that you can do to try to gauge how well your build is coming out a little bit. And if it doesn't come out, perfect the first time, it's not a big deal. Just take your time, take down what you don't like, and do it again, and just keep working on it until you come up with something that you do like. You know, this is something I've said often. If you're getting frustrated or whatever, just step away from it. Put the controller down, get off Minecraft, play something else. Come back to it in an hour or next day or whenever you feel like getting on again. And then kind of approach it with a fresh set of eyes. I found that's always the best thing to do on a build. Anytime that you're kind of getting like builder's block and it's just not coming out the way that you want it to, because more often than not, if that's kind of like your mindset, you're just kind of frustrated. The build's not going to come out as good as it possibly could if you had a clear-headed mind and fresh eyes to look at the build. Which is pretty much what I also did between today's episode and last night's episode. You know, I was having problems with this area, and then later on in the episode, I decided, you know what, this isn't exactly coming out the way I want it to. I'm going to go on to other things, and we worked on a couple other things a little bit, and then we decided to come back to it, worked on a little bit more, still wasn't coming out. It wasn't able to finish it off and get to a point that I was happy with. So, you know, I called it a night with that. We're coming back at it fresh today, and we'll get there. I'm getting close. I've got the bottom row about what it needs to be, but it's all about coming up in with a pattern where it all blends in together, and that also goes along with my cut pattern, because you don't want to have blocks that are standing out, and that's a lot of what's happening right now. Is that it feels like an incompleted area on the ship, just not working. I think in a moment here, I'm going to end up taking down a lot of this and then probably redoing this whole back area again the last time, hopefully. But I mean, this is definitely going to happen to you when you're building a ship custom. Sure. You can see how, like, I'm trying to work my pattern together going along with the cut lines. That's how I'm forming these blocks. I'm trying to make it all blend in together. But still, it's not, I don't want, like, I'm not really a fan of that too wide area right there. That doesn't look all that great. See, that's getting there right there. That doesn't look bad. But I don't think I necessarily realized that just yet. I have actually had quite a few people commenting lately on my YouTube channel. I definitely appreciate that. Everyone takes the time to watch my videos, not only on YouTube, but also on Twitch. So thank you for tuning into this live stream. But I've had a few people ask me on the builds that I'm going to be doing next. I actually had a few people ask me for, I had two people ask me for the Excelsior, and I had somebody else ask me about the Enterprise A from Star Trek Beyond. And right now, I'm actually going to be working on next gen era ships. And the main reason for that is because I've built so many ships from Kirk's era. That's pretty much all I've done. So I want to branch out a little bit, show that I can build a little bit more variety in ships, which is a large reason why I'm building the Cerritos right now. After that, I'm going to be doing the Enterprise D. Once I'm done with the Enterprise D, I'm not really sure what my next build's going to be, but more than likely, it's probably definitely going to be another next generation era ship. I've had a couple of requests here and there, but if there's a ship that you would like to see me build, be sure to drop a comment below. Try to keep it within the next generation era, but for whatever reason, if there was a ship outside of that, you know, still feel free to comment that. Just because if I don't build it now, I may, you know, pan back to that later on, because the majority of the builds that I do on Minecraft, if not all of them at this point, are based on what the comment section people ask me for, and then also what builds I can get passionate about. And that's very important. You know, for your channel. You know, if you're an aspiring YouTuber, somebody that's maybe not as big as I am, and I wouldn't call myself big by any means, but you got to try to provide what your community would like to see. And then not only that, you have to be able to build what you're passionate about. Um, the Discovery would be a good example of building something and it doesn't necessarily come out exactly the way that you want it to. That's not to say I won't build the Discovery A. And as weird as that sounds, I actually really like the Discovery A. I don't know, just the changes that they made about that ship. I dig it. I'm just waiting to build it until they put a model out. But as soon as they do, you can bet that I'm going to be all over that. Now you can see here, I'm just going along the outline of the ship along the V here. We're going to do the same thing on the left side. I'm literally just continuing on pattern that we had started, and I'm going to bring that all the way out until we get to the circle. Once we get to the circle, I'm going to stop. All right. Now, see, that doesn't look bad at all. That actually looks good, and that is a perfect example of blending your ship in. And you can see that, you know, it's starting to look a little bit more seamless uh, because you look at this area of the ship and then you look at this area of the ship. That's what I mean by building and staying within characteristics that you're creating on your ship. So that's one of the reasons why I've spent all this time now trying to rebuild this area, because it really just wasn't matching the look of the rest of it. But now it's starting to come together a little bit more. I think we're looking really good. I don't like these two wide pieces in the back here because um, basically it's fattening up as we transition down, which is the exact opposite of what we want. We want to try to maintain this line as much as possible as we go down. Because if you look at the model of the ship in that area, that's more or less how it is. The shape as it angles down, it has the same width on it. And that's going to be very, very, very difficult to do in Minecraft with blocks, especially at this angle. But it's not impossible to make something that looks something like it. Trying to figure out if what I want to do is have it just be single blocks individually, one in front of the other. Because before we kind of had that back here, but then as we got further back, it was double wide. Um, so that could be a thing. Obviously, I have to make just a couple little tweaks here to correct our, make sure our pattern stays right going with the cut, but that could be the way to go. To be honest with you, I don't even know why I filled in a lot of this in with the gray, because some of it is going to have to end up coming out. That's okay. You can see I'm doing it very cautiously, because that's exactly what's happening here. Is I'm not necessarily sure making it super skinny right there is necessarily the way to go about it. We may not have any choice with it. And you can see sometimes I just have to sit here and just take a look at it. Actually, haven't had to do a heck of a lot of that for this build. There were one or two times that we did that for the Enterprise, the Discovery Enterprise. That's literally just what I'm doing at this point. I'm just trying to figure out the best course of action to take and what I don't like about it. And we literally have the same problem because I didn't even change what was necessarily wrong with the ship. This back area right here is too fat as it transitions down. But instead of working on that at the moment, I'm going to switch over to other things just for a little bit, and going to go around and add half slabs completely around this circle, or excuse me, the straightaway part of the V on the top side of the saucer. And then we're going to go around the circle as well, and making sure to stay with the pattern of going with a cut. If you have extra blocks, make sure to get rid of them. We're going to bang this out. We got a couple more rows to do. All right, perfect. This actually have to go along this side right here, which I did not do. But if I don't do it in this episode, I'll go back and do that just so both sides match. And we're going to do it in the front right here, which could end up coming out because obviously the bridge window is going to be right there in the front. But she's definitely starting to look like the CERRITOS a little bit more. We're not doing too bad. We've gone through the first 21 minutes and we've got about 16 minutes left. Just enough time to finish this thing off in this area and do what we need to do. So this way, next week, we pick back up on Tuesday, we can get rid of, or excuse me, we can wrap up the last couple of things that I'm going to be doing on the outside of the ship for now. We'll be hopping over into the inside more than likely, and getting that started. There is a slight chance I might do some more stuff on the outside before I go on the inside, but that's at least the plan. I have to hop on Minecraft this weekend and get that going. So definitely follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/ZeroElite. I'll definitely be streaming this weekend. So if you want to see me do this completely actually live, that would definitely be the time to watch. And also, if you have questions while I'm going to be doing this build, but there's going to be a couple of areas that I'm going to be working on. I'm going to be more than likely starting to prep out um, areas for the bridge and engineering, because I decided that engineering I'm going to put it in the saucer section based off of the blueprints that I could find online, and I'll be showing that in next week's episode if we get into um, the interior by the end of next week. I think we will, based on the amount of videos that I have left pre-recorded. We will probably be getting the interior at some point next week, if not the following. But speaking of the interior, if there's rooms that you want to see me add on this ship while I'm still working on it, be sure to drop a comment below. Let me know what rooms you would like to see me add, because once I get to a certain point on this build, it's going to be more and more difficult for me to add rooms on it as I start to prep areas out. So definitely let me know what you would like to see, and if I can incorporate it into the build and it makes sense and it's part of the ship, I'll definitely add it, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to catch everything. There could be an area of the ship that I'm overlooking that somebody else thinks of, so I mean, hey, you never know. But I'm pretty excited to get into the interior on this ship, because it's just it's going to be, you know, a different era, you know, of Starfleet for one, and it's a different class ship, and even just based off of how the corridors came out, you know, it's I feel like it's just going to have a unique look to it. And this is actually also going to be the only ship that I've done other than an Enterprise with the interior. Because when I built the Discovery, well, no, that's not true. I take that back because I built the Vengeance has an interior on it. I never really showed it because I never really got super far with it, but it does have an interior and has corridors and stuff. But when I did the interior for the Vengeance, that was we're going back a couple years at this point. We're going back to like 2016, 2017, somewhere around there, whenever those videos were going up. Um, but regardless, the interior on this thing is going to be a lot of fun, especially the Shuttle Bay, because this ship actually has two of them, and they're both in the saucer section. I've kind of envisioned it in my head. The way I'm going to do it is the Shuttle Bays um, are going to be connected to a large cargo area, and they're pretty much going to be taking up this main back section of the ship. And then as we get towards the center, obviously up on the upper deck of the center would be for the bridge, and then the lower area I'm going to have reserved for the engineering. But I think that'll look pretty cool, actually. It's going to be very unique. We're just going to stare at this thing for another second or so, and then we're going to get right into it, because at this point in the build, I was still having a hard time trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Here we go. So now I'm going to delete all the stuff I've done past this V that I've just created. I'm going to do that for both sides. Because I don't want to delete all that work, but just the part that's not working. Got to figure out a way to get this to transition down without it fattening up as it gets lower. You see I'm doing that nice and slow, so if you need to, you can pause the video to get your placement. If you need to delete that as well, for those of you that are building this with me. And see, and this sucks when this does happen, because there's not really a way for me to edit out through this without showing all of it, because if I show bits and pieces of it, then those of you that are building with me are going to get stuck. So that's one thing I don't want to do, and but at the same time, you know, it sucks again because I feel like I have to backtrack a little bit. But I mean, that's if I didn't show all of that, to be perfectly honest with you, um, I don't think I'd be showing a realistic tutorial in this. Um, as far as building a ship from scratch, because it's almost impossible unless you're like one of the best builders in the world. I think there's more than likely always going to be a trial and error period at some point when you're working on a build. You see, I've got the right idea, just literally got to blend all that in now and go with the pattern. And we're about to do that in just a moment here and wrap this thing up, or at least this part of the ship. Sucks I don't have that much Star Trek related stuff to talk about. I know that they're getting ready to film Picard season 2. Um, I was reading that Whoopi Goldberg is going to be involved with season 2, which is pretty cool. I'm looking forward to that. The more legacy characters they bring back from TNG, I mean, the better. Um, I know that we're not going to get a Next Generation sequel or reunion, but if they even like even if they didn't bring back any more like main characters, I mean, well, to be honest with you, I take that back. Geordi and Worf need to come back for sure, and I hope they show up in season 2. And not only that, I want to see Q, John DeLance's Q. That needs to happen. I feel like all the references from season 1 of Picard, from there were a ton of references, in my opinion, to the episode's All Good Things, the series finale for Star Trek: The Next Generation. And it just seems like they're going to go there at some point. To be honest, when right before Data died, um, I was really expecting Q to show up, just because of the fact that he kind of respected him in the sense, and I'm pretty sure he owed Data a favor. I was kind of expecting him to bring him back, but I can understand why they didn't want to do it on the show. Because it would have taken away from Data's death, and also it's a lot of money to de-age Brent Spiner. But here's the thing: if they bring back John DeLance as Q, unless they just work into the story his age, they're going to have to de-age him too, because the Qs don't age, as far as I know. But even if they had him show up as an older Q and just had it like in the plot that maybe he made himself look older to mess with Picard or something like that. Like, I would honestly buy that and be happy enough with that as it is, and they can just move on. But I think if they don't bring Q into Picard, I think they'll be doing themselves a disservice, um, because that was like the one villain in the movies that, again, when Data died, I thought Q was going to show up, and they never went there. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with Picard. Hopefully, they do some cool stuff. Um, I know that they're working on Strange New Worlds, that TV show with Captain Pike, but I haven't really heard anything on it lately. I actually haven't heard anything on it in a little while. It's been a few months. Um, I would assume that they've been working through it throughout the year, and that they're going to get that out sooner rather than later. But it could be a little while. I do, just in general, level the Star Trek that they're getting out. It's kind of reminding me of how it was, at least in the 90s. I felt like the 90s was like the glory years for Star Trek, when they had all those shows on the air at the same time. And it was cool because you didn't have to be a Next Generation fan. You could be into Deep Space Nine, or you could be into Voyager. There was a lot of different things to choose from. And even after those shows ended, you had Enterprise 2 and all these shows, all the things that they've tried to do since then. I mean, they've done the reboots, the movies, which is kind of like hitting the action fans. And I mean, I think everybody has their own opinion on, the movies. Me personally, I didn't hate them. I think they tried to recapture, the essence, the at least the essence and the relationship of the characters. I don't know if they tried to recapture the essence of Star Trek, but I feel like they tried to recapture the essence of the characters and bring that into a more modern, profitable setting. Um, but what else can I say? I mean, it's definitely a good time to be a Star Trek fan. I don't think I'll ever watch it, but I know that they also have that uh, uh, show that Kate Mulgrew is going to be in. That she's coming back as Janeway on the kids network. That's off the top of my head that I can't seem to remember. Nickelodeon. I don't even know why I had that brain fart. My bad. But yeah, I guess she's doing some type of show on Nickelodeon where it's like going to be like a Starfleet Academy, and like, I think that's actually really cool, because they didn't have any of that when I was growing up. Before my time, they had the Star Trek animated TV series, but I don't even think I was born at that point, because like, first Star Trek that I was introduced to was the Shatner movies, and then I watched TNG, and then as I got a little bit older, they had. I remember growing up, they would have TOS on the original Sci-Fi channel, and I used to watch it on there. But I always, like, out of the shows, I always liked TNG the best. But I liked all the Star Trek. I liked Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine was pretty cool, and I liked. Believe it or not, like, what they're doing with Discovery reminds me a lot of Deep Space Nine, because they knew it back then that sometimes, you can bring in a supporting character from another show to help boost that that show that you're trying to get more ratings on. And they did that a couple of times with Deep Space Nine. I know the main one is when they brought Worf in, but they had a lot of characters in there. There were TNG crossovers a bunch of times, and I know that Voyager even had a crossover. Maybe not directly with Deep Space Nine, but like they had like a loose crossover at least with that era of what was going on. Like there were a couple episodes they did that, but like I said, it's pretty cool because it's something that we definitely need. More Star Trek, the better. I wish we can get some more Star Trek games. Not that I don't dislike Star Trek Online. Um, they've gone through a lot of changes in the last couple of years, like especially like their subscription services. But I don't know. I kind of want something a little bit different, maybe more on like the diplomatic side because I don't know. I love flying around shooting stuff and I love going on the ground missions and shooting stuff, but I don't feel like there's enough diplomatic missions on there. But if they did that on Star Trek Online within the way that the game's been made, I don't know if I'd want it. But I don't know. I just want them to make another Star Trek game or to keep going with it. Star Trek Bridge Crew was kind of cool, but what lost me on that game was excuse me, really the lack of story missions. If they would have actually went all in on that game and created a fully formed game with a campaign, I probably would have put more time into it. But I don't know. I've had a couple people tell me about the VR, and I can't get into it until they put more into it. And I'm kind of hopping all over the place here what I'm talking about, but we are cruising along. You can see I am filling in the hole on our cut on the top side of the saucer that we had left out, and just getting back a little bit what we got going on here. And then once we've got all of this filled in, we're going to go around it and edge it out with half slabs. And then I think that's going to wrap us up. But no, I do play a lot of Star Trek Online though. Outside of my building games, Star Trek Online is definitely one of my main games. I'm on there quite a bit, and if anyone else that watches me is on there, let me know as well. Because I'm pretty sure that the alliance that I play with is always looking for new members. So once we get this last couple of rows of half slabs in, I think that's going to wrap us up today. We've shot through 36 episodes. Doesn't really feel like it. I know I've kind of jumped the subject here, talking about a couple of different things, but hopefully by next week there'll probably be more Star Trek news, more stuff to talk about while I'm doing these videos. I try to keep it as entertaining as I can for you while we're doing repetitive stuff and at least talk about stuff that I feel is relevant to the build somewhat. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap us up today. I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode. And if you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And don't forget, you can always follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Zero Elite. And you can always catch my new live streams Sundays through Thursdays, typically between 9 and 10 p.m. Eastern. And also, don't forget, you can always catch me on YouTube at youtube.com/C/Zero Elite. You can always catch my new Starship Evo builds on Mondays and my new Minecraft videos dropping Tuesdays through Fridays. And those videos drop at 10 a.m. Eastern. Anyway, just want to thank you all again. I hope everybody has a happy and safe weekend, and I will catch you on the next episode.